All right, so here's some interesting ideas on frequency. So Tesla had an interesting quote that to pretty much understand everything, he said you want to understand energy, frequency, and vibration. And what does that really mean? Because we like to say it and it sounds cool, but if we really break it down, how do we understand it? Well, the more I work with specifically AC-based resonant technology, which if you're working with radio frequency, and radio frequency technology is essentially just a way to wirelessly send and receive stuff. Eventually, it started at around the kilohertz frequency, and then it went to around the megahertz frequency. And around the megahertz is when we got FM radio, and we also got television. Remember when you had an antenna? You stuck an antenna into a television, and then you would click different channels, and it would be all staticky, and you'd kind of have to move your antenna around. And I guess the people in the past, like really past, really long ago, had like a dial, which technically would be probably a variable capacitor if you're interested in the technology, and they'd have to move the dial around, right? And that would tune it to a different channel, the same way a radio would be tuned to a different channel. And that is frequency. So frequency is tuning things to different resonant frequencies. And really, if you're interested in the engineering, there's things like LC circuits, which is capacitor inductor. There's RC, resistor capacitor. And the capacitor it's kind of like what's creating the pulse, the dun 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 dun, which is then creating the frequency. So it's how many times per second is the frequency. So how many times is the capacitor discharging per second? And that's what you call the resonant circuit, right? The resonant electrical circuit. And you can use things like crystal oscillators to, like a 10 megahertz crystal oscillator or a 20 megahertz or something. And it'll keep it at that resonant frequency. Otherwise, you use an LC circuit or some other thing, right? An RC circuit or whatever, and then you use a lot of transistors to feed the circuit through, and then you amplify it and all this kind of stuff. But without getting too far into the electronics, energy, of course, in this context is the electricity that you're feeding it, right? So amplitude in a sine wave, because you've got frequency and amplitude, which, amplitude is like amplitude modulation radio and all that, right? And then frequency is frequency modulation radio. Amplitude's the power, so it's the intensity or the strength. If you understand music, amplitude is the volume, so it's like the size of the wave. It's how intensely you are strumming the string, you're plucking the string, the guitar string. It's how intensely you're blowing to blow, the bassoon or the trombone or the trumpet, right? That creates the sound vibration, which is the intensity, how strong it is. That's energy, okay? And the frequency is the pitch. If it's high pitch or low pitch, that's the frequency. And the frequency relates to everything in the world. When I say archetypes, I'm essentially meaning individual frequencies. Archetypes are things that you relate everything to. It's like the sun is the archetype of gold, the color gold, the lion, all these things it's an archetype. That's a frequency, right? The green frequency of nature and plants, the middle ground, that's another frequency. The red frequency, sometimes they're related to like a lower wavelength, right? It's like these are all frequencies. Like these colors are individual divided regions, right? So when we energize the frequency, we create the vibration, which is then the third thing. And this is kind of, I guess it's like the yin and the yang fusing together to create a thing. Because it's like, if all you do is tune the radio, but you don't power it on, you're not going to get a signal. And a radio receiver is the opposite of a radio station. You know, like a station that emits the signal. It's like the opposite of a thing that receives a signal. And technically the circuitry is actually rather similar. It's just one's like, you know, they both have antennas. They both have a resonant circuit to create the frequency. And there's some things like decoders and whatever, but they will both have antennas to, you know, emit or receive it, right? It's just that your receiver radio is receiving the frequency that it's tuned to. The emitter, that's what the word I was looking for, the radio emitter is emitting the frequency that it's tuned to, right? And an interesting thing is that, so you tune the radio to the frequency you want to receive, and what if you tuned the radio to the frequency of God? And you could say God is a being, you just use that word, that emits all frequencies. It's like a rainbow, right? When you, I don't want to, we're not endorsing the use of drugs, but if you take LSD, you see rainbows, right? And you start saying like, oh, everything's a frequency, man. Like, this is the video that I would make if I was taking acid. I'm not. I've been working a lot with electronics, and last night I kind of like, I got a lot of downloads, so to speak. I got a lot of crazy thoughts. But this is the video you would make on acid. Because on acid, everything is just a frequency. You tune the dials, which again are variable resistors, or what you call, or variable capacitors. So potentiometers or variable capacitors. These are dials. You tune the dials to whatever frequency you want, and life becomes that. It's just made up of, of that. You just tune your life to whatever you want it to be, and it'll be on that track, or, you'll just dimensionally shift, and that's on acid. But in reality, I mean, it does kind of work that way. It's just really slow, right? And the wavelength, or the speed of the tick, 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 tick is that's the frequency, right? And a slower wavelength is like relaxation. So the more you slow things down, you slow the wavelength, right? It's dun, 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 dun. Like the heartbeat slows down, right? And the slower you go, so you go to 1 hertz, and then you go even slower, so like half a hertz, quarter of a hertz. That's how you reach infinity in reverse. That's the 0 point, right? So the slower you go to where there is no frequency, because it's like infinitely long. It's like the in-breath is infinitely long. The out-breath is infinitely longer. It becomes one whole thing. If you can kind of understand that, it's like if you just try to imagine like slowing down so much. That's what you can think is the physical pole of God, right? And you could tune an antenna to that physical pole to receive like infinite amounts of slow energy. That's like low as radio waves, right? But the higher frequency, as I said, like God is the being of like the rainbow being of like infinite frequencies, right? All full spectrum. It's like a super expensive radio transmitter receiver that emits and receives everything, all bandwidth. It's in the megahertz. It's now in the gigahertz. We're in, because we have like 4G, 5G. That's all gigahertz bandwidth frequency. So we were in the megahertz in like the 80s and 90s and 2000s. in 2010s-ish, kind of we got into like gigahertz. Now we're in like tens of gigahertz, and like I think they're doing hundreds of gigahertz now. So that's like we're just slowly going up in frequency. The things are getting quicker and quicker and quicker. So instead of going dun dun dun, it's going dun, 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 you know, it's like a rising tone. And what it does is it physiologically causes more tension, and of course it pulls you higher into the head, because the upper head region, you know, heaven, the sky, is high frequency, and the lower area, the base of the spine, the genitals, the bowels, the belly, all this stuff is low frequency. And low frequency is like healing and rest and materialization. So it's good, right? We want low frequency, but we also want high frequency as well, because that's like creativity and intellectual stuff, and like you know, being quick, right? So sometimes being slow is being quick. You know, they say smoothness is quick, is you know, gets you there quicker, which is true. So we want kind of both of them, but it's like, what do you want? Do you want positive or negative at this time? Do you want stimulation? What do you want? Relaxation? And going on, if you built an antenna that resonated at like the highest frequency available, like an infinite frequency, it's going infinitely quick. Hypothetically, wouldn't, if there was like a source of energy, because I would imagine the quicker things go, the smaller they become, the more like non-physical it becomes, and you're starting to work in like the tiny sphere, right? Like you're going into like quantum mechanics and like all these weird ass physics that like is really difficult to understand and super abstract from reality. The higher the frequency goes, the more you're working in that, and I would assume that there's some kind of like energy out there. Again, it's like the higher part of God, like the not the, almost like the star of God, right? Like a star, like a white star. You know, it's like Keter in the Kabbalah. It's like the crown chakra of God, essentially. It's like the cosmic source of space. That all things all energy comes from, right? And if you tuned an antenna to the resonant frequency of this, which is infinitely high, you know, mechanically, how do you do that? I have no idea, but there'd be some way, right? Platinum and radioactive materials, and I don't know, like you're working with like gamma rays and like X-rays and all that, right? And you tuned it to this, hypothetically, you could receive like infinite amounts of energy, right? It's like there's infinite amounts of high voltage energy in the you know, the sky. Or the same way you tune it to the infinitely low frequency, which is just perpetually going slower and slower until it like almost does not move. It's like you get infinite amounts of, I don't know, like magnetic, like slow energy somehow, right? So we could probably make it like technology that does it, but otherwise, on more of a spiritual level, hopefully that gives you an idea of like the spectrums. Again, just think like the rainbow body of God, which holds all frequencies spectrum. It's like it holds all colors of the rainbow. It has like these two poles, like the physical world, you know, the earth, the sky, the earth, the waters, and the spiritual world, you know, the sky and the heavens and such, right? And there's like infinite amounts of energy that you could tune into with the radio. If you could make a radio that like, you know, can tune to these resonant frequencies, right? I guess. So I don't know, that's like technology for the future, I guess. But that's one idea for free energy. You know, people talking about like 0 point, which is they start talking about like vacuum energy, and I'm starting to wonder, you're talking like actual like the vacuum of space kind of thing? Because hypothetically, if space was real, which, you know, there's a lot of debating stuff on that, but if there was a vacuum of energy, couldn't you just harvest it for its vacuum? You know, you'd think, wouldn't there be a way to move a machine like a motor using vacuum force? Like somehow you connect a pipe to it and it just infinitely tries to pull and vacuum It's like a reverse gust of wind, you know? Like you just make infinite energy. Is that what they're talking about, or some other microscopic thing that I can't understand? I don't know. I don't try to hurt my head too much. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed my yeah, whatever. I wanted to give you that, last night I wanted to make the video and I was like trying to get to sleep. I thought of pulling my phone out and making it. Maybe I should have, but I don't know. I think I kind of got the vision, the energy that I was trying to get out. So I hope you enjoyed. Have a good day or night, and check the links in the description if you want more stuff. Otherwise, have a good day or night.